Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our STEM Summit. We will get started momentarily, so if you can just sit tight, we will get started very shortly. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Erin Haley, and I'm thrilled to kick off the Innovating 2025 STEM Summit Connecting Education, Careers, and Communities. For those of you who may be new to Children at Risk, it is a nonpartisan nonprofit based in Texas that focuses on research and advocacy to address the root causes of child poverty and inequities. The mission is to drive change that improves the lives of children through strategic research, public policy analysis, education, collaboration, and advocacy. Today's event is brought to you in collaboration with the Texas Family Leadership Council, a network of family-serving organizations from across the state. You can find the agenda for today's sessions and learn more about our expert speakers through the links shared in the chat. Please submit any questions for our speakers using the Q&A feature. Once the event wraps up, all registered attendees will receive the presentation slides, additional resources shared during the sessions, and a link to the event recording. A special thank you to our sponsors, Shell. Your support has been instrumental in making today's event possible. To officially kick off our summit, I'm excited to introduce Dr. Bob Sanborn, President and CEO of Children at Risk, for some opening remarks.
Morning, everyone. I can't see myself, so I'm assuming you guys can see me. There we go. Okay. Bob Sanborn here, President CEO of Children at Risk. I'm really excited to be here, and I want to thank Erin and Erica and James, all of the team members who've been such a big part of putting this together, the coaches as part of the Texas A+ Challenge. Also want to thank Becky and Erica for the work that Erica Alcala for the work that they've done in putting this together. Really, I also want to thank Shell, right? Shell has been sponsoring this STEM summit that we've been doing for about 20 years. And their support has been invaluable as we sort of watched what's happening with STEM across the state of Texas. One of the things that comes to mind for me when we talk about STEM is previous to being at Children at Risk, I worked at Rice University for many years. And one of the things that we would see at Rice is that we started off with a very large group of students that would come in with an interest in science, math, engineering, and that number would get smaller. And I thought it was interesting. I thought that was just the way that STEM worked. But after Rice, I became the dean of a college up in New England, Hampshire College in Amherst, Massachusetts. And what I noticed there is that we started with a small group of people interested in STEM subjects, and we ended up with a much larger group graduating. And I always thought that was peculiar. And it was all about curriculum and all about how do we engage students? And how do we do the right things to make sure that that little bit of interest in a STEM subject is able to grow into something much bigger? We do have a challenge in the United States and in Texas in terms of people that have the interest but are consistently told, well, maybe you're not that good at math, or maybe you're not that good at science, or some of their own personal sort of being scared of some of these subjects is reinforced in the classroom. And I always come back to that time when I was at Hampshire, where again, the idea that was reinforced was let's explore that interest a little bit more and let's get you much more interested and do more with that. And it's almost what we need to be doing when it comes to STEM subjects is making sure that every child, no matter what their income category, no matter where they grew up, that every child who has that little bit of interest, we're able to grow that into something more. And as we do the school rankings all across the state of Texas, we see that each and every day, and certainly every year when we do the rankings, that there are these schools that are doing a much better job of sort of growing that interest. And we need to emulate that and use those as sort of examples, as evidence to make sure that we're doing everything possible for our children. We know that there are countries that do a much better job of that than the United States, and we need to make sure that we're doing the right things so that these kids, these students, grow into professionals that really care about this issue, that are excelling at this issue, and have had the proper education to get where they need to be. So I'm excited about the summit today and all of our wonderful guests that we're going to have. And I thank you guys very much for being here. I want to introduce James Dearden, who is one of our esteemed coaches at Children at Risk, academic performance coach. And James, as some of his colleagues say, he has the words. And so we're really excited to have James here. James, you're looking mighty sharp, I must say.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate the kind words and your checks in the mail.
Very, very good. So without any further ado, take it away, James.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bob. I appreciate being here and I appreciate everyone who's joined in. And so what we're going to do first is we're going to take a data-driven look at the state of STEM education, why it matters for our students, educators, and communities, and what the numbers tell us about opportunity, representation, and our future workforce. So as we move through the next several slides, we'll explore what the STEM pipeline looks like from school to career, where the gaps are, and how they impact economic mobility. So let's begin by grounding ourselves with the current landscape of STEM career demand. One thing we see, one of the strongest indicators of STEM education of why STEM education matters is the rapidly expanding job market. So by 2032, STEM careers are projected to grow dramatically, far outpacing many other industries. This is not only about innovation, it's also about economic survival. Communities that prepare students for those roles will be positioned for long-term prosperity. Conversely, communities that don't adapt risk being left behind. This projected growth highlights why investments in STEM must be early and be accessible to every student. Next slide. So when we look at job openings over time, we see the same trend. STEM workforce is accelerating. In fact, Texas is expected to represent nearly 10% of future STEM opportunities in the nation. Comparing opening from 2020 to 2023, the total increase in demand is striking, with an anticipated 25% growth. This is equivalent to about 1.5 million additional workers needed. This tells us two things. First, STEM fields aren't niche, they're foundational to our economy. Secondly, we are simply not producing enough STEM-ready graduates to meet the surge. Without intentional efforts in K through 12 in higher education, the workforce gap will continue to widen. Next slide. So Even today, the volume of annual STEM openings is remarkable. Three occupations, registered nurses, software developers, and industrial machinery mechanics account for 36% of all annual STEM openings, with an average median wage over $83,000. This range spans healthcare, tech, and skilled trades, showing that STEM isn't a single pathway, but a constellation of opportunities. It also reminds us that STEM competency isn't just for engineers, it's foundational for many of the jobs that keep our communities functioning. Next slide. So we often talk about STEM pathways, the STEM as a pathway to economic mobility, and the data backs that up. Individuals in STEM occupations earn 56% more than the Texas state average. That wage gap translates directly into increased stability for families, greater spending power in local economics, and stronger community resilience. When students, especially those from historically marginalized backgrounds, are supported to pursue STEM coursework and careers, the long-term impact extends far beyond individual success. Next slide. We often talk about STEM as a pathway, to economic mobility. Fuck. As we shift into math and science, the enrollment patterns in AP and IB science courses show similar trends across racial and ethnic groups. Throughout the years represented, we consistently see Asian students making up the largest share of enrollment, between 32 and 38%, while white students hold the next largest share, around 11 to 12%. Hispanic students account for 6 to 8%, and Black students range from 4 to 6% of enrollment in these advanced science courses. What these numbers highlight is a persistent gap in access and participation, particularly for Black and Hispanic students, who together represent a much larger share of the statewide student population than we see reflected here. Expanding access to advanced science courses is essential because these courses are often gatekeepers to college readiness, STEM majors, and future career pathways. Next slide. When we look at advanced coursework overall, not just AP and IB classes, but all advanced offerings, the distribution by race and ethnicity remains uneven. Enrollment percentages generally range from the high teens to low 20s across groups, but notably disparities persist. Social studies consistently represents 20 to 24% of enrollment in advanced coursework. Science follows closely behind with 17 to 3%, 23%. Math courses fall to 16 to 20% range, while ELA, English Language Arts, represents 17 to 21% of advanced coursework enrollment. These numbers reflect progress, but also raise an important question. Are all students being equally encouraged, supported, and prepared to enter advanced tracks? These gaps remind us that advanced coursework is not just about academic challenge, it's about equitable opportunity. Next slide. When we break down advanced coursework enrollment by gender, a clear pattern emerges. Girls are participating at higher rates than boys. Across multiple years, girls consistently account for 24 to 27% of the advanced coursework, while boys are closer to 14 to 21%. This trend is meaningful. It tells us that girls are opting into rigorous academic pathways at strong rates, especially in areas like advanced math, science, and interdisciplinary coursework. However, this participation does not automatically translate into equal representation later in STEM fields, where women, especially women of color, remain underrepresented. This disconnect between early academic engagement and later career outcomes is one of the largest challenges in STEM education. It shows why mentorship, representation, and continued support are essential as students move through middle school, high school, and beyond. Next slide. The STAR results highlight another important point about gender and achievement in STEM subjects. Here we see boys slightly outperform girls in math, but the differences are relatively small. For science, girls show meets and exceed rates around 10.8%, while boys fall about 9.8%. These percentages reflect a broader need for stronger foundational support across both gender groups, especially considering how essential early math and science proficiency is for long-term STEM success. Even though girls are enrolling in advanced coursework at higher rates, these STAR outcomes show that we must ensure both boys and girls have the foundational skills they need before moving into higher level STEM learning. Next slide. In the final slide of this particular section, we show that statewide meets and exceeds rates broken down by race and ethnicity. These differences are stark. For example, Asian students meet or exceed standards at the highest rates, up to 80% in science and 75% in math, while white students follow at 56 to 59. Hispanic students meet standards around 35 to 43%, and Black students 29 to 26%. These disparities reflect long-standing inequities in access to high-quality instruction, experienced STEM teachers, enrichment opportunities, and advanced coursework. They also underscore why early intervention, equitable resource distribution, and culturally responsive teaching are critical. If we want a true diverse STEM workforce in the future, we must address these gaps today, ensuring every student gets the opportunity, encouragement, and support to excel in math and science from the earliest of grades. Next slide. As we look at who is earning bachelor degrees in STEM fields across different racial and ethnic groups in the United States, we see important patterns in both gender and representation. For Hispanic and Black students, women are just over half of the earn over just half the STEM degrees. Although the gender gap is modest, both groups remain underrepresented in STEM overall. Among Asian students, the gap is wider. Asian men earn significantly larger of STEM degrees. This group is overrepresented in STEM fields overall, but gender equity remains a challenge. For white students, we see a similar pattern. Men earn a larger portion of STEM degrees than women, continuing the national trend. These gaps highlight how early access, preparation, and support shape who enters the STEM pipeline and who ultimately completes STEM degrees. Next slide. Continuing to move beyond K-12 into higher education, national patterns mirror what we see in Texas. According to Pew Research Center analysis, many racial and ethnic groups remain underrepresented in STEM degree programs. This underrepresentation doesn't magically appear in college. It reflects a pipeline that has been shaped by unequal access, tracking, and opportunity from early childhood onward. If we want a STEM workforce that reflects our communities, then our higher education systems must be prepared to support a more diverse set of learners entering the fields. Next step. So gender disparities remain one of the most persistent equity challenges in STEM. While women have made gains in certain fields, particularly in health-related STEM jobs, they remain significantly underrepresented in computing, engineering, and physical sciences. These are among the highest paying and fastest growing STEM sectors. Closing the gender gap requires not just outreach, but mentorship, representation, and strong school to career pipelines that affirm young women's belonging in STEM. Thanks a lot.
So sorry, James.
Go ahead.
We have
Sure.
to move forward. Okay. But I do want to remind everyone that these slides are available to everyone who is registered for the summit. And so you will have access to continue to review this information. But thank you so much for James for providing us with the data overview and all of this important information.
Sure. Thank you.
Up
Aaron.
next, we have a very exciting panel, The State of STEM in Education, a discussion on the state of STEM in education, highlighting challenges and opportunities in teaching, the importance of diversity, effective teacher preparation, and connecting learning to real-world applications. Moderating this panel, James with Children at Risk, who will introduce the panelists joining him today. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished panelists.
Thank you, Aaron. And I'm thrilled to be joined by an exceptional group of leaders whose expertise spans mathematics, education, science preparation, artificial intelligence, and teacher development. And so joining with me today, we have Dr. Paige Evans, who is co-director and clinical professor at the University of Houston. We have LaTrenda Knight, who's the president of the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. Dr. Sissy Wong, associate professor of science education at the University of Houston, and Dr. Lenore Caldras, assistant professor of AI, artificial intelligence, at the University of Houston. Please join me and welcome our panelists as we begin the conversation about strengthening STEM education for every student, every teacher, and every community. Thank you for joining us. Thank you. Look, so I want to begin the conversation, if you don't mind, with current challenges and opportunities in STEM education. So I'll start with you, Dr. Paige. From your perspective, what's one of the biggest challenges facing STEM right now, and what gives you hope?
So thank you, James. And actually, you went over a lot of the challenges in your talk just a minute ago, but I will add to that. From my standpoint, one of the biggest challenges we face today is the growing number of uncertified teachers in STEM classrooms across Texas and the nation. So why this matters, more students are being taught by teachers who may or may not have deep content knowledge, but they also may be limited in their preparation on how to teach effectively. So this happens especially in math and science. So this shortage, this really impacts student learning and teacher retention. So there's this revolving door of teachers going in and out of the classroom. And that's why programs like Teach Houston, the one that I'm co-director of, they're so essential. So if you think about it and talk to some STEM undergraduate majors, most of them were inspired to go into STEM by somebody, maybe a teacher, who believed in them before they believed in themselves. So highly prepared STEM teachers matter. They ignite enthusiasm in STEM with their students. This may translate into more students majoring in STEM and also better prepared students for the rigors of a STEM degree. So we need to invest in teacher preparation that blends content mastery with real classroom practice and mentoring. Teaching STEM well requires knowing not only what to teach, but how to engage the learners in the classroom. And so I'll talk about what gives me hope. It's the energy and innovation I see in our next generation of teachers. Our pre-service teachers, they're curious, they're reflective, they're passionate about making STEM accessible for all learners. They're the reason I'm confident we can reverse this trend and strengthen the teaching force.
Well, thank you, Dr. Page. You know, you mentioned something about uh, uh, it related to AI, and so along those lines, I was Dr. Laura, you're in AI, and so I was wondering how the new tech, how has new technologies like AI and virtual learning changed the way we teach and learn STEM? I'm very interested in that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I think it has changed and it's still changing the way we
Mhm.
teach, and hopefully, more change is gonna come in the future. But I think the most fundamental shift is really the ability to kind of continuously monitor student progress and deliver that information to the teacher and to the student in a variety of forms that are, suitable for teacher to make decisions, adjust their instructional supports to really meet the needs of individual learners that come with very diverse backgrounds, but also provide very much needed, timely, and personalized feedback to the learners, because we know that feedback is really one of the major driving factors in improving learning outcomes. And it's really not feasible to provide timely and tailored feedback when you have, 30, 40 students in a classroom and one teacher. It's just too high of a demand on the teacher's time. But with these AI tools, probably the first time ever, we're actually able to provide meaningful, tailored feedback at scale. And I think this is a very, very powerful transformation that these AI technologies can bring into the classroom. Again, both teacher facing and student facing. And, if we're talking virtual reality technologies and other learning technologies, then of course, we're providing students with opportunities to really engage in doing science and constructing their knowledge. So they're shifting away from absorbing the information from the teacher to really having this opportunity to engage to the works of science, in what real scientists do. They interact with the chatbot, or they interact with computer simulation, virtual reality systems, and that allows them to be kind of their own constructors of their own understanding. They can manipulate the system in any way they want. They can see what the results are. They can kind of take their time and process and figure out what steps they want to do next. And that really mirrors that very essential process of knowledge construction that real scientists do. That's really hard to replicate in classroom settings without the availability of such tools. So that's another thing that I think is very, very powerful. And that also consequently shifts the role of the teacher from a person who kind of transmits the information to someone who really directs the overarching structure and overarching direction of where the learning is going. Really, hopefully, giving the time to the teacher to help them focus on building skills like reasoning, like ethics, something that I don't think that can be really outsourced to AI. But the teacher really becomes that driver of the learning process, because hopefully more of their time gets liberated to really apply their expertise to other really high level cognitive skills that matter very much for helping develop a STEM learner.
Absolutely. And what I see and have experienced for myself is that students are much more accepting of the AI and the virtual learning than I was as a teacher and many of my colleagues. It's a learning curve more for the adults than for the students. And we have to be willing and open to letting AI into our classrooms, because students are really open to that. And so I appreciate that. And so with that, Dr. Wong, you're at the university, and so sometimes the collaboration between schools, business, and the community. How can we build on that? Some of the biggest opportunities between collaboration that you might see between the schools, the business, and the community to strengthen our STEM learning?
That is a great question. I think there are many opportunities for us to strengthen relationships and bridges between those three factors, right? And I think right now it is a little segmented. Everybody kind of does their own thing and maybe reaches out to do partnerships here and there. But I think really a deeper understanding of what everybody does is really important. So, for example, one of my projects, we work closely with a local school district, and it's not something that we do without their input or assistance, but it is a partnership, a collaboration in which we all work together and understand the nuances of what's going on in each other's neighborhoods. I think it's really important to be informed about what everybody does, but also to embed ourselves in what everybody does. So instead of just taking pieces of a puzzle, that we're all in the big picture together. A lot of the ways I think that we currently embed business into our projects is to have them be guest speakers, right? But I think more than that, maybe they can come in and lead some workshops. They could come in and actually work with the children, and actually really understand what the children are thinking and seeing the questions they're asking. Just being more hands-on and present in each other's what I call neighborhoods would be really beneficial to that. But I think there's many opportunities. The sky's the limit, but we shouldn't be limited by what we've done so far, but to think outside the box in ways that we can collaborate and work together to develop something that is more streamlined, more of a pipeline, so that everybody's expertise is accessible throughout the process.
Absolutely, absolutely. That collaboration piece is so important. A lot of times we work in isolation, especially as teachers. We'll close our door and we don't even collaborate with the teacher next to us. And so being a much more collaborative, or leaning into that space is something that we all can really strive to do and be better at. With that being said, LaTrinda, NCTM, I'm a math teacher at heart. And so I've been to a couple of the NCTM conferences, and as the president, you can kind of shape this vision. And so I was wondering, if you can make one big change on how we approach STEM education today. I know that's a big ask, but what would it be? What would it be, and why would you want to make that change on how we approach STEM education?
Well, if I could take my magic wand
Yeah.
and wave it and make this big change happen, I'm going to answer that with one way, but it's going to almost be two ways. So that's just the math teacher in me. But one thing is that I think everyone here in this panel can agree that traditionally, when we think about the STEM subjects, a lot of this, the other panelists have mentioned, it was present in the data that you shared. There's this belief, and it's holistically accepted, that math and science are only for certain people. So people believe that there's such a thing as a math person or a science person. And so that's one of our biggest barriers, is that people believe that there's only a certain segment of society that's that this is a fit for them, a career in that area. So that's one of the first things we have to do, is change that mindset that there's such a thing as a math person or a science person, because you cannot go through your daily life and not use these skills, not interact with someone who is using those type of skills. So everyone has to see that there's a place for them there. When I think about pre-K-12 education specifically, one of the biggest changes I would like to see is for us not to wait until a student gets to high school to start thinking about, oh, let's look at STEM careers. Because as we know, these are things that are foundational. These are things that a lot of times students need to have exposure. They need to have the opportunity to actually interact with those concepts, interact with those subject areas so they build a strong foundation. But also for a lot of students, it's an interest that will be sparked because they've been exposed to it sooner and earlier. When we have surveyed students post the K-12 experience and they're out in the workforce or they're in 2-year, 4-year colleges, a lot of students have express regrets that they didn't know that certain things were related to STEM or related to those content areas, and that they didn't have the opportunity sooner to actually participate in those type
Mhm.
of courses. So it was things that made it not accessible to them. So making sure that as early as a child enters any type of formal setting, even when they're at home, that they are exposed to those concepts, those activities that are STEM related. So they have that interest. They are aware of those topics, aware of those activities, so that they're not missing out on opportunities. Is what we don't want our students to miss.
I was as a parent of a student who was in elementary just last year, in our school district. They built a new school, and I was excited because it's a STEM elementary.
Hmm.
And so all the students at that campus got to experience STEM beginning in kinder all the way
Hmm.
through fifth grade. And so I was so excited about that. And, with that being said, I have a daughter, right? And
Hmm.
so diversity matters. Why
Hmm.
diversity in STEM is important. And I'm going to stay with you, Latrenda. I'm going to ask
Okay.
you this question to
Hmm.
begin with.
Hmm.
Why does it matter? I recall being a teacher, and there was a social
Hmm.
media question about when was the first time you had a male teacher, right? And so who's teaching STEM?
Hmm.
And many of my students who, when I was teaching eighth grade math, I was their first male teacher
Hmm.
that they had ever seen. And so when we think about who's teaching STEM, when's the first time they've seen somebody who they can connect to, or maybe looks like them, who's
Hmm.
teaching STEM? And so my question to you is, why does it matter who's teaching STEM, and how does that representation impact students' confidence and curiosity?
Those are all, great things to think about because at the end of the day, we're human beings. And
Mhm.
so we are driven by thinking about how we see ourselves and unfortunately how others see us as well. So it's all about thinking about that identity. And so in order to foster a positive identity for all of our students, we do have to think about representation. Students should see themselves as learners and doers of mathematics and participants in STEM activities. But reality is that they also are looking at how others perceive them. So it's really important that students see that the diversity, not just in the STEM activities and in STEM as we see it in the real world, but also see a variety of different types of people, of different opportunities, different places where they see these things occurring, because this opens the door for students. A lot of times we talk about, windows and mirrors, for students to have a window to see the world around them, but in that mirror to see themselves there as well. And people also talk about, the sliding doors when they think about that as well. So it's really important that we are very intentional and very purposeful in providing those opportunities for students at the earliest ages possible, so they know that it's accessible, and that for those folks who are selecting and choosing and hiring the people who are teaching our students, to be very intentional to recruit a very diverse teacher workforce, because there's so much research that supports how students increase their performance, increase their interest when they actually see people who look like them or people who've had the same experiences as they have in just that's their daily life. That is their work. As a child, school is your work. So when they go there, they need to feel comfortable and have, just that support around them so that they feel as if this is something that's accessible and attainable for them.
Absolutely. And in staying with the diversity theme, Dr. Page, I have a question. I know you've seen and there are barriers that exist that keep us from building a true diverse STEM teaching workforce. Um, what are some of the barriers that you've seen, and how can we start breaking them down so that it is much more inclusive and it does represent the diversity in our community?
So there's lots of barriers. One may be cost of certification, limited early exposure to teaching as a STEM career. So a lot of people don't see teaching STEM as a STEM career. And then the
Mm,
long-standing challenges in recruitment and hiring. LaTrenda just mentioned a bunch. She mentioned the barriers of the perception of who can do STEM, which also includes STEM as a STEM teaching profession. And so our recruitment base for our program are STEM undergraduates. So that's a barrier right there. The perception of, oh, can I do STEM or can I not? And so that gets into the higher education space, but also the high school and PK through 12 space, because a lot of them are inspired by a STEM teacher.
mhm.
So I feel like we can make this and address this and make STEM more accessible. We could do things like having scholarships, paid teaching residencies. They're a big part of our program now, and strong mentorship networks. And especially going on with what LaTrenda said, connecting new teachers with accomplished, diverse educators. Okay, so
Mm,
that's definitely a goal in our program. The other thing we need really strong partnerships. Okay, so in order to have these residencies, we need partnerships with school districts. We place our future teachers in classrooms for a full year alongside expert mentors. And so that connection is just vital. I can't say enough about the connection with the school districts to get the strong, accomplished, diverse teachers. With that partnership, though, the schools also gain our well-prepared teachers that they have helped to cultivate. So we're in this together. It's definitely a
mhm.
partnership. And now, if you have industry join through maybe some internships, classroom speakers, or involvement in summer camps, the ecosystem gets even stronger. So those are some of the barriers and potential
Mm,
solutions that I
yeah,
see.
that those partnerships. I'm going to go back. Partnerships, like those are so important. And so when we think about those partnerships, Dr. Wong, being in academia, I'm hopeful that you have seen some powerful examples of programs of mentors helping specifically young girls or students of color get excited about STEM. Can you share with us any of those examples that you may have seen throughout your years in academia that help support and mentor young girls and students of color?
Absolutely. One of my projects is actually with ExxonMobil Foundation. And what they do is they recruit at-risk youth
Mhm.
in urban areas around the Houston area to participate in a very well-developed program that involves mentorship throughout their high school career. So they not only visit the space that they've created, they go there, they can build projects, 3D printing, lots of different things. They can experience STEM experiences, but also receive mentorship, tutoring, and scholarship support, because as Paige was saying, money is definitely a concern. And so it's one thing to support our at-risk youth through their K through 12 experience to become
Mhm.
interested and to become proficient in STEM practices. We also need to support them in pursuing the STEM fields. And so, for example, they are actually provided a $10,000 scholarship every year they go to college for tuition fees, whatever they like. That's in addition to the mentors working diligently with these students to apply for and receive multiple scholarships from other sources. So not only are they experiencing these rich STEM activities, this space that's created just for them to experience STEM and STEM fields and interact with STEM experts, but they get all around support to do well in school and to give them resources to succeed after they graduate high school. So there's lots of examples like that that I think are really innovative and really well thought out that really help children at risk, minoritized students, especially girls and girls of color to pursue STEM and STEM fields.
That's great information. Hopefully we can get that information out to some of our young STEM hopefuls. Matter of fact, my daughter, I'll be getting the information. And so I do want to jump to connecting STEM in the classroom, like the classroom and real world. So I want to jump to Dr. Laura, and I want to ask, being in AI, how can teachers make STEM subjects feel more connected to students' daily lives and the communities? Because it is such an integral part of what we do every day. And so how can we connect that in the classroom? How can teachers connect that for students in the classroom? I think you're on mute. You got to come off mute.
Sorry. Thank you for that question. I think absolutely AI can be a facilitator in making those important connections. But at the end of the day, I think, the drivers are the teachers, the community, and the parents. Some examples I can think of. I think it's really important to spark curiosity among students. And that is going to be probably one of the main drivers for them to want to be stay engaged in STEM fields. And of course, that can be done through a variety of things. If we're talking parents, it's important to acknowledge across the board, and I guess I'm going to, repeat what Latrenda mentioned, that everyone can be successful in STEM. There is no such thing as a STEM person. And so from that perspective, parents just casually pointing out, we're fixing things, let's say, in the house. That's part of being a STEM person. Or, you walk your kid to school, and on the way to school, we're talking, okay, why does this puddle disappear in the afternoon? And we see it every morning. Just, sparking curiosity around the phenomena that you see every day, and doesn't need to be anything fancy. And then at the classroom level, I think it's important to engage students in projects that are relevant to them, their communities. One of the kind of highlights that I always have in my mind, back when I was working in the Midwest, we had this project where students would test the quality of water in different Great Lakes. And it was just so amazing to see how that sparked their curiosity, that kind of push them go take an extra mile, and they want to try and test water quality in other rivers and ponds, and just learn about their community and the ecology. And so I think those are all very, very important kind of factors that need to be integrated into the classroom, into the everyday life of kids. And then, of course, the community wise, building partnerships, perhaps with local businesses that are involved in STEM, where students can actually visit the sites, observe everyday lives of STEM workers in different fields, kind of across the board, talk to real people in their community who look like them, who live lives similar to theirs, and kind of learn, okay, what is it like to be a STEM person in my community? And then as an AI person, I absolutely think AI can facilitate kind of every step of the way. Some of the things that my group is working on is really developing AI-based supports to help students engage in the STEM fields in various ways that spark their curiosity, where, they're actually, doing things with the help of an AI agent. But that, is not meant to really replace the teacher. It's meant to serve as an extra tool for the teacher to implement in any way they want, to help in their instruction, to help the students kind of maybe do some self-exploratory work if they're interested. Because these tools, I think the beauty of them is they don't necessarily have to be used in the context of a classroom. They can be used in a variety of different contexts if they're designed well, and they can really support students in further developing their curiosity in STEM beyond the classroom.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for that. And, you know, as we kind of wind down our conversation, I do have one question that I'd like to ask of all the panelists. It's the same question, and Dr. Bob asks this all the time when we get together and meet, and it's around moonshot goals. You know, when we think about STEM and where we currently are and where we want to go, let's say this is what 2025. Let's say the year 2035. What are some of the moonshot goals that you think about personally in the area of STEM? And I'm going to ask each of you to take a few minutes and share your moonshot goal. And I'll start with Dr. Evans around what are your ideal moonshot goals? Something that might seem to be impossible, but the Jetsons predicted where we are today. And so I'll start with Dr. Page and then we'll go from there.
So with my teacher preparation hat, I'm going to go with, and I don't think this is a moonshot goal. I think this is achievable, but we've been working on it for a while. We seriously need to elevate the status of teaching. In this current climate, teachers are looked down upon, and this is at a time when we need great STEM teachers more than ever. Yes, fair compensation matters, but so does recognition, leadership roles, career advancement, and opportunities to innovate. So my moonshot goal is to elevate the teaching profession, but also to elevate teachers and give them a voice. Give them a voice in the curriculum. Give them more of a voice in the classroom, because right now the trend is going towards scripted lessons and all of that. Teaching STEM is one of the most intellectual, demanding, and socially important careers out there, and we need to treat it as such. And I could go, as you can tell, I could go on and on about that, but that's the goal. We have to do this. It's critical to the future. It goes to all the stats that you talked about in the beginning, James. They start with a teacher. They start with a great STEM teacher. So let's elevate the STEM teaching profession.
Yeah. Thank you. I believe that is completely achievable. Completely. We have some work to do. Latrinda, how about your moonshot goal?
Well, I definitely could not agree more with my fellow panelists. And I am right there with Paige about elevating the teacher. And part of that, when you celebrate the teacher, the person who usually is that first person who probably sparks that interest in the student about STEM, you actually make STEM more accessible to students because they see it's not just, you mentioned it's 2025. Of course, we're thinking about 2035. It's interesting that when students still look at things in media, that some of the perceptions of a STEM person still look like they did when I was a kid. I say back in the dark ages. So you still have someone with pocket protectors on and they've got a lab coat on. So let's open up what that picture is. And so my moonshot goal would be that we will do a lot more to make those experiences that students have in the classroom more engaging. So not just the scripted lesson, students are actively involved and actually make things more relevant for students. So they see a connection between what the content is they're learning and how they use it and see it being used in their daily lives. You know, Dr. Laura shared so many practical examples that a family or a caretaker can use to help open that door.
Mhm.
We have to take away that mystery and make it relevant. And so it should just be something that happens interchangeably in 2035.
Okay. Dr. Wong, I'll give you the next 60 seconds and then Dr. Laura, as we close out the segment.
I'll talk fast. I think you're going to find a trend. I really believe that not only do we need to elevate teachers' profiles, is that we need to really respect and honor and acknowledge their expertise. Autonomy is really important. And when given the opportunities, our teachers can do amazing things in the classroom. As we know, in the state of Texas, about 20% of students are emergent bilinguals, but in Houston, that's actually 40 to 45%. That is a huge population of students that are potentially untapped for the STEM field. So supporting teachers and working with diverse students, because sometimes they are not given the opportunities of professional development to do so, but to work with students that speak a different language so that they can learn content and language simultaneously, and honoring their home languages, because that is part of our students' identities. And in order for our students to feel welcome anywhere, they need to feel like their whole selves are being seen and valued. And so helping teachers really work with students that have different needs. And also, like LaTrenda said, being socially and culturally relevant, right? Connecting what we're learning to students' home lives, family, pop culture, peers. Also connecting what they're learning to a societal problem. Why is this important? And like Laura said, it doesn't have to be this big fancy thing, but simply like, why do we put salt on the road when it freezes? Why does that work?
Mhm.
Simple
Yeah.
things. Why does putting a metal jar under hot water help you open the jar? Simple things that help you ground your learning in a phenomenon that helps students understand what they're learning is relevant to their everyday lives.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wong. And Dr. Lorna, you get the final 60 seconds.
Absolutely. Thank you. I will echo and absolutely support what my colleagues here said. And I will add that I think we are entering potentially very scary grounds where a lot of people are going to believe that AI can replace a teacher. And I hope that part of elevating the role of the teacher is going to be realizing that AI can never replace a teacher. The teacher is the central and integral part of a functional human-oriented learning system where absolutely AI can serve as a helping hand, but the role of the teacher in the age of AI becomes even more crucial because the teacher has to kind of install those critical thinking values, critical thinking skills and values into students so that moving forward they can use AI in kind of meaningful and responsible ways. And for that, one of the big pieces of educating is a future teacher is, figuring out how to help them gain these critical skills and what that means for teaching in an AI world. And absolutely, that AI cannot replace a teacher. That's going to be my final message here.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Let me say thank you to all of you for a great discussion, great panelists. And I look forward to working with everyone because I am in the classrooms on a day-to-day basis. And so I may be calling on everybody to support me and support STEM in the classrooms. Again, I appreciate you for your time, your energy, and all that you do. Thank you again. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Erin really quick, and then she'll probably kick it back to me.
Thank you so much, James. So thank you to our panel for such an insightful discussion. We truly appreciate the valuable perspectives shared on building the state of STEM in education. Now let's dive into our next session, Career Spotlights. This panel will be a rapid fire series featuring STEM professionals who share how they discovered their careers, what inspired them to pursue their paths, and how their work impacts communities. To guide us through this conversation, I'm pleased to bring back our moderator, James, who will now introduce the panelists and kick off the discussion. James, back to you.
Thank you again, Aaron, and hopefully you're not tired of me, but I'm here and I'm excited again to introduce our outstanding panel of STEM professionals. Um, Students always ask, well, where can I use this? Where can I use this? And so now I'll have answers. I'll have 4 different answers to give. But let me introduce Valerie Steen, ophthalmology COA and technologist nursing professional, Mr. Tim Trevino, ground segment and mission IT manager at Axiom Space, Guadalupe Bailey, BE, design section manager for engineering services, and Darius Sullaby, strategic food and beverage leader. I'm really interested about that. Like, how can I STEM in the food? So each of these leaders bring a unique pathway, a unique passion, and a unique perspective on what it is to mean to build a STEM career. Please join me in welcoming our panelists as we begin the inspiring conversation on discovery, purpose, and the power of STEM careers. Please join me. I want to start out with Tim. Right? Is Tim? There's Tim. There we go. There, I see Tim now. Tim, Axiom Space. You're IT manager at Axiom Space. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then what first sparked your curiosity about science and technology?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So for Axiom Space, I am the ground segment manager. So we control all of our mission control systems here for Axiom Space, as we have worked with our correspondence with NASA and different international partners. So we handle everything from our communication lines to be able to talk to our astronauts when we're on board the ISS, to handling all of our IT and ground systems here at Axiom Space. So we pretty much handle all your IT needs from the ground to onboard ISS. What sparked me is pretty much just my general love of technology as a kid. As a kid, I was always into video games, and that kind of nurtured my I guess my creativity. And that's pretty much how I started growing into the love of it. And then being so close to Houston, and then seeing astronauts going on board and seeing launches in Florida on TV, it just really sparked that desire to work in aeronautics.
Yeah. We see space shuttles go up all the time. It's like, how do they do that? You know, I remember as a child, I was wondering, how do they do that? And can I do that? And so, you know, that space exploration has I think a lot of us have been interested in wondering how that happened. And so as I move on to Valerie, you know, ophthalmology, the COA, you know, my eyes are beginning to fail me. They don't get better as you get older, right? And so I full transparency, I failed my driving test, my vision test, but I think the other person really didn't know what they were doing. And so,
Oh,
you know,
gosh.
yeah, my eyes. And so can you tell us a little bit about your profession, your career, and also the nursing professional part of it? And in that, was there a particular moment, a person, or an experience that made you think, hey, I want to do this? This is what I want to do.
Awesome. Great question. First, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to Dr. Bob and everybody that's been on the panel. It's just been so good from the beginning. I'm like locked in. And I thank God for the STEM program, because I know it gives children that are at risk an opportunity to get involved in these amazing careers, especially with gifts that they have that they may not know that they have yet. But for me, ophthalmology is something that I absolutely love. I knew from the time I was a little girl that nursing would be something that I wanted to do. I wanted to take care of people. I remember when I was young, my grandmother would take me on Saturday mornings to go to garage sales. And one day somebody got sick, and I was like, okay, I've got to help this person. So I knew then it was already in me. And so as I grew up and gone through school, I didn't have teachers in my life that pushed, certain careers. It was just kind of like me trying to get through school, right? So once I got out of school, I needed a job. I knew I wanted to do nursing, but I was trying to figure out how I was going to be able to do this. So I saw TSO. I don't know if you guys remember Texas State Optical. You guys are young, but Texas State Optical was where you would go to get your glasses and your eye exams, right? So I walked in. Just young and green, and just knew that it was something that I wanted to do. And I met this office manager, and she said, well, come on to the back and I'll interview you. So she hired me on the spot. She saw the zeal and I was just really eager to get into a field to where I could help somebody, right? And so she took me under her wing, and she taught me the things of ophthalmology. And I said, you know what? I love this. I absolutely love being able to help people see. And then once I moved on, I said I wanted to be more on the medical side of ophthalmology. There's glasses. We all think that ophthalmology is just frames or glasses. But when I think of STEM, STEM is like deeply woven into ophthalmology and into ophthalmic care. And so when it comes down to surgeries and traumas and disease of the eye, that's where I find my niche. And so I am very grateful for being able to be under the wing of people that saw what was in me. And no matter how afraid I was, or no matter how I felt like I couldn't do it, they always pushed me. So definitely ophthalmology is a passion for me, and I absolutely love it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And Guadalupe, I see you're a design section manager for engineering services. So real quick, like when I was going to high school, I did not want to be an engineer. My mother made me go to an engineering high school, and I said I didn't want to be an engineer. She said, it doesn't matter. It will help you for whatever you want to do in life. And so I had an environment that pushed me in that direction. I ended up being in science. But Guadalupe, can you give us a little bit about what being a manager for engineering services is? And then how did your early environment influence your interest in STEM?
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for having me. It's definitely a privilege to be here with everybody and learning a lot too from everybody's experiences. But yes, so currently I'm the design section manager for engineering services. So what we do, I lead the water distribution systems for both water and wastewater for our citizens. Our Texas residents are there and are in good infrastructure. So we deal a lot with designing using like MicroStation, using CAD, and then going from there, from the beginning of the project, working with consulting at the same time. Going all the way to construction. So I was very influenced by my parents, especially as a Hispanic, growing up in a minority community that brings its challenges. But I felt like my parents were always pushing me. They were always me and kind of like what the previous panel was talking about, sparking that curiosity. I feel like my parents did a good job always keeping me engaged and asking me questions, and I had curiosity too, so I was always asking questions, and then kind of just led to that engineering career. My father's like, well, based on your interest, why don't you maybe start pursuing like engineering career? And it's funny that Valerie's into ophthalmology, because I actually started thinking about I want to be an eye doctor, but then that kind of shifted. Yeah, so then that kind of shifted when later in high school, when I started kind of liking building things liked designing, building a house, sketching a house, drawing. So then that kind of led me more towards that engineering side of it. It started with maybe architecture, but then felt like engineering, civil engineering was going to be more my focus. And that's where I kind of went through it in high school. But having that strong support from my parents, having that family, both of them telling me, you can do it. Don't give up. We're here for you. We'll support you as much as we can. Having that support, I felt like that definitely helped me to go through college and to where I am right now.
Nice. Nice. So were you at an engineering high school as well?
No, it was
Okay.
it was just a regular high school, but they did have like AP classes and honor classes to help with getting credits towards college. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Nice. And so I'm gonna move over, Mr. Diaz. I kept reading strategic food and beverage leader. I'm like, I love junk food. Hopefully you're not contributing to my weight gain with your work and making it so fabulous and irresistible. But could you give us a little bit about your experience with the strategic food and beverage leader, and like what was your aha moment that confirmed that you were on the right path in what you were doing?
Absolutely. Thanks, James. Nice to meet you. I am a food scientist. I don't know how many food
Okay.
scientists you know. A lot of people have never met one.
Today makes one.
All right, there we go. Well, I'm currently the director of innovation for a large beverage co-manufacturer to global brands. So essentially, we come up with concepts and we deliver the finished good to those brands. So a lot of the things that you're seeing on grocery store shelves or that you're getting at maybe your favorite coffee shop are products that I've had a hand in. So today, I've helped to develop and commercialize 60 products. And that's all the way from the bench. So working with the ingredients, the marketing behind it, presenting it to the customer, and then watching it being shown on commercials that are around the nation. So that's awesome. And then for me, I was a little bit of a late bloomer when it came to the STEM career. And what I mean by that is I was an athlete, so I always had an affinity for nutrition. I love to understand how what I ate impacts my performance. And then on the other side, I loved chemistry. I loved math, which my dad helped to nurture. And I didn't realize you could put the two together until I was applying for college with his help. We discovered food science at Iowa State University. And it was really at that moment. And if I take a step back, I also love Steve Irwin. I have to give a shout out to Steve Irwin. So biology, I always came up with Discovery Channel, Animal Planet. So that helped to really get me interested in science as well. But going back to applying for college, I found out about food science and I learned two things. One, it really pays to ask questions and to be curious. By asking the right questions, we were able to get a full ride scholarship for myself to study food science at Iowa State. And then also, this field has a lot of job security because people always need to eat. That's the big thing. A lot of people were talking about AI. I love AI, but I don't think AI is ever going to replace food scientists.
AI is going to replace a lot, but it won't replace everything. I'll tell you, it's it's as strong as its programmer, right? And so there will always be a need for human interaction, and there's room for both. There's definitely room for both. And so, what are you going to say? No. Okay. Yeah. So, I literally could sit and talk to you all day, and I keep getting the message, hey, time's running. So I want to jump to, and this is going to be my final question for each of you. Well, you'll have different questions, but I want to talk about lessons and legacy. And I'll start with Guadalupe. What lessons have you learned from your journey in STEM, especially in the field of what you're currently in? And so what are some of the lessons you've learned from your journey in STEM?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great question. I believe that having that strong communication is very, very important. And knowing your resources, kind of the previous panelists mentioned, there's some research out there, but sometimes we may not be aware of them. So being informed, doing that research and knowing the resources that we have definitely can help us with our careers. I mean, I definitely took advantage of some of those resources early on, but I feel like if I would have maybe been a little bit more engaged in the beginning of my career, I think it would have helped me better. Having a mentor, having mentors throughout, whether they're friends, teachers, or just somebody in a different, even in a different industry, I think that can be very helpful. But having that mentorship definitely helps, and I feel like that has helped me a lot, and it's what I've learned in this path, and just having that passion for it is definitely, and being happy about it, right? Being happy with what we do. I feel like that definitely is something, and having that joy that I feel like is a great lessons learned and still learning in my career path. Yeah.
Yeah, being happy in what you do is so important. Nobody wants to wake up and go to do something that they can't stand doing, but they feel like they have to do it because of financial obligations. And so, yes, being happy is definitely important. And so, I'm gonna jump to Tim. Tim, with space, and we kind of know how space has impacted our daily lives, but how do you hope your work will influence future generations or your community in the space world, in what you do?
That's a great question. A lot of the space industry is changing to more of a commercialized space infrastructure, and what a lot of these companies are doing are trying to open up space to everybody else. Like for instance, we here at Axiom, we have had 4 private astronaut missions to the ISS. And the main things we have is that we have given access to countries that are not normally allowed or to be able to go into space, to give them that option to go into space, do their actually experiments for 2 to 3 weeks, actually be a full-fledged astronaut, and actually be able to represent their countries and everything. So I'm hoping that kind of like the legacy we leave is to be able to continue breaking those grounds, those barriers, to allow additional people that are not normally allowed to per se be in space, and giving that opportunity and kind of laying the groundwork so our future generation of students and our kids and grandkids that are in STEM can take up that mantle and keep pushing forward. I totally kind of agree, like what Guadalupe mentioned. I'm a big proponent for mentors. I did about 15 years at NASA, and before I went into the commercial realms, and mentorship was a big way, because I mean, it can get kind of daunting sometimes in certain STEM fields, but having someone to kind of like give you that first step to get you going, and then allowing you to run with the ball. Having those mentorships, I'm a big fan of them, and I will continue being a big fan of them as long as I'm here. Will be that way.
Yeah. Thank you. The science, I have a couple of friends who actually work at NASA, and it is so interesting. And I've taken my daughter out to NASA a couple of times and gotten tours, and so she's really interested in STEM now. So I appreciate what you do in that space arena. Valerie, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm glad this is being recorded, because I know you're going to drop some jewels on me, and I wanted to write them down, but I'm going to ask you, what advice, and I know you have it, what advice would you give someone who's just starting out and unsure about their pathway? I have my pen, so you can start talking. I'm writing.
Okay. My advice, great question. I would just say don't stop. Don't stop. Like, even if you are afraid, don't stop. Even if you're not sure, don't stop. Even if you feel like you don't have the support, don't stop. Keep going. I have learned that, someone is going to come along your path throughout your journey, and they're going to see the gifts that God has given you, and they're going to take you under their wing, and they're going to help you through. So it's about the journey, really. It is about the journey. I have learned that along my journey, I received the greatest lessons. And so again, I would just say, no matter where you come from, no matter what your background is, no matter if they said you couldn't do it, you can do it because I've done it. So my big thing is to just don't quit. Keep going. Even when it doesn't look like it's going to happen, keep going. The biggest thing I can say is your perspective. So it's not what you see, it's how you see it. So look at how you're seeing things as an opportunity to say, this is it for me. This is an opportunity for me to grow. This is an opportunity for me to meet some incredible people like everybody that we have here on the panel today. This is an opportunity to reach that one person, that's interested in mathematics or technology or engineering, IT. That just gives them hope, and it encourages them, and it like creates this spark in what's already in them. So again, just keep going.
Yes, absolutely. Keep going. Absolutely. And one final question for Darius. How do you define success for yourself now? You've been had your hand in over what was it, 50, 60 products now. And so how do you continue to define success for yourself? And where do you go from here?
Yeah, success for me is continuing to offer innovative solutions to consumer demands, whether that be dietary restrictions or what they're looking to have improved in their food. But taking it to another level, it's teaching the next generation. I'm super passionate about that, and letting them understand that they can be the next leaders when it comes to what our food industry looks like and help to solve the world's problems, such as food insecurity. And I always preach when people ask me about my legacy, I want people to remember that they are great, not so much that I was great. It's what you have in you. So network, meet people, and understand that's how you're going to get far in life. And if I can just add this tidbit about how I got into the industry real quick, Nadia Salibi, who's my aunt and is on the call, lived above my very first boss, who was a food scientist. And with the help of my grandfather, he knocked on his door, got us connected. I networked with him, got a shadow, and then I got an internship opportunity, which propelled me into the food industry because they offered me a full-time job going back into my senior year of college. So for those kids that are coming up, network, don't knock STEM until you try it, and get as many job shadowing opportunities as you can, because you never know what's going to pique your interest.
I'm so glad you answered that, because that was going to be a follow-up question to you, because I know so many of us are kind of interested, like, how did he get into this? Like, what is this? Because I had never really imagined food scientists, even though I was in the science arena in college. That was never even offered as an option. And so I'm so glad that you answered that for us. And I really want to extend a sincere thank you to all the Career Spotlight panelists for sharing your journey, your passion, and the powerful impact on your work in STEM. Valerie, Tim, Guadalupe, Darius, your stories remind us of that STEM careers come in many forms, shaped by curiosity, persistence, and a desire to serve others. Whether it's advancing healthcare, pushing the boundaries of space exploration, designing the infrastructure that supports our cities, or innovating in the food and hospitality industry, each of you demonstrates how STEM truly touches every part of our lives. Thank you for your honesty, your insight, your commitment to giving back to your communities. Your experiences help students imagine new possibilities, even adults, because now I'm imagining some stuff. They help educators better understand the pathways ahead and help us all appreciate the opportunities that STEM provides. So I appreciate you for your time, and hopefully you can stay on for a quick interaction and reflection where we may have some questions from the participants or the viewers. And so I'm going to kick it back to Aaron, and there may be some questions for us. So I appreciate you.
Thank you to James and our previous panel for the insightful discussion on finding your path in the diverse world of STEM careers. Now it's time we turn to a moment of reflection in our next segment, where we bring back our moderators and panelists. This reflective session invites dialogue, captures key takeaways, and ensures every voice has space in the conversation. Please use the Q&A feature to interact with the panelists.
So as we look at these questions, I do see a question here, and anyone can answer this. So if you all could come back on camera, everyone can come back on camera who's still here. And I'm going to throw out a question that it's a general question that's in the chat. And it has to do with going back and talking to your younger self. If you could tell your younger self something about either the journey that you took or where you are right now, what would you say to your younger self? Let's say the 12-year-old you. What would you say? And that's for anyone.
I'll take that one.
Sure.
I would tell myself that I am loved and that I can do this. That's what I would tell myself. Like, believe in yourself. Even if nobody else does, you can do this. That is exactly what I would say to myself.
Okay. All right.
I would say that there are more people in the world that are for you than against you, and that want to see you succeed. So don't have fear when it comes to going and approaching people and learning and asking questions.
Okay.
Yeah, I would also just to chime in a little bit, I would say don't give up, and at the same time take every opportunity that's presented. We may not think that we want it, but then it will help us learn something new. And so I think definitely taking any learning opportunity is great.
Yeah, I kind of want to say the same thing, is don't shy away from any challenge, because you never know what that challenge may end up, test you, but you end up becoming a better person on the other end of it. And you never know what opportunities it'll give you.
Yeah. So I know earlier someone mentioned about having mentors and role models in shaping, who they became and who they will become. I just want to ask, did any of you have mentors? We're working with a school district with their mentor program, teacher mentor program, and it's so important that the new teachers have mentors to help them navigate this new environment that they're in. And so what I want to do is offer up, if anyone has any stories about having a mentor or not having a mentor and what it did do for you or could have done for you, and what you were doing as a mentor as you move through your particular field. So again, that's for anyone.
I can work on that one. Going to school, we were in a small town, so not many STEM programs or teachers in that time when we graduated high school. So not having a mentor in that realm felt kind of hindered me. Felt like kind of doing them on your own. So like I said earlier, I'm very a big fan of having mentorships everywhere. Even I actually have some friends that are teachers that have reached out and actually had mentors in their areas of STEM, and allowing like their students to work with those mentors as well to kind of help guide them and give them that assurance that they could do it. From one of my mentors is actually when I worked at NASA. It was a gentleman that he pretty much, I was a very shy person. I'll be straight up honest, a very shy person, but he gave me the confidence just to go, hey, here's your opportunity. You make this opportunity your own. And it just took off from there. So, like I said, I try to mentor as many people as I can.
Mhm.
We have a lot of different universities and schools that come through Action Space for like different outreach events,
Mhm.
and I try to spend as much time as I can trying to mentor them, answer the questions, because I mean, you never know when we might have a scientist that can make a big difference in the world being just being started by just answering their questions, because you never really know.
Sure. Sure. And so you said that you do try to mentor other okay. Yes.
Yes,
I
sir.
heard someone speaking. I'm sorry. I cut someone off on
Oh,
accident. Yes, go ahead.
James, I was gonna hop in and
Sure.
ask a question too.
Go
This
ahead.
is Nadia
Go ahead,
Saleeby,
Nadia.
Chief Impact Officer. So wonderful to hear y'all and all the wonderful conversation happening. And this is actually a question that was posed by a viewer, but I kind of want to ask it, but then kind of grow it a bit in regards to thinking of those early stages. So before getting into a career or when you were kind of in school or in the thick of it, whether that was even in high school where you were thinking about STEM, um, how did you get through the moments where it just felt hard? So, like, whether that's imposter syndrome, feeling a self-doubt, or whether that's also like a very competitive environment. How did you, when you think of that younger self of your of whether those late teenage years or early 20s, how did you make it through? What supports were necessary, whether they were in the community, whether they were within the school you were in or the university you were in that allowed you to succeed?
I will take that one for sure.
Mhm.
Great question. When I first started out in ophthalmology, I didn't see a lot of people that looked like me. Definitely a lot of women. Diversity is so, so, so important when it comes to any aspect of any career field. Because when you think about you have a passion for something, but you only see you, it's hard. So I was given the amazing opportunity to land the best job that I've ever had. It was with the Department of Defense. So I started out at Lackland Air Force Base. And when I first stepped on base, I saw everybody that looked like me. I saw women in my field that were also officers. I've never served in the military, but I've always been a civil servant. So being able to see other women of my color working in ophthalmology, it encouraged me to go further in my career. I had one of the best mentors, and he's still one of my mentors, Colonel Caldwell. And he has inspired me, challenged me. I mean, so much to the point where I thought I was actually in the military. But I am so grateful for his leadership. So mentorship is definitely important. It helps you, especially just like you said earlier about the imposter syndrome, and feeling it like I can't do this, and doubt sets in when things seems hard. It's always good to have someone that's coaching you through and sees the best in you. And just gives you the opportunity to grow and to learn, and definitely creating an atmosphere to learn in is also so important. So being able to see other people that look like you and encourage you is so, so, so very important. And so I thank God for those opportunities.
Sorry. I was on mute. I was on mute. It reminds me of being back in 2020. You're on mute. But we have a question from in the chat from Stephanie, and this again is for anyone. And her question is, what surprised you the most in your career education journey? In your career or your educational journey? And again, that's for anyone who wants to jump in on that one. Or actually, you know what? I'm interested in, I'm going to ask, and if you don't mind, I'll put you on. Dr. Page, As again, you're in the academic world. Was there anything that surprised you about your career or your educational journey?
Well, a lot of things. I'm a first generation college student.
Ah,
So I didn't know anything. When I say I didn't know anything, I didn't know
mm-hmm,
anything. I didn't have great mentorship until I got into the schools, until I got into teaching. And that's kind of where I got the support that goes along with everything else everyone has discussed so far. Um, what surprises me in education is that it just seems like every year there's just this trend of more and more stuff that's put on the teacher. So if you ask a
mm-hmm,
teacher, it's not the teaching, it's all this stuff. And
mm-hmm,
and it's still going on. And we've got to put a stop to this insanity of putting more and more stuff on what I think is the most important profession in the world. So there's that trend. The other thing that surprises me is we're still talking about inquiry-based learning, which we need to, hands-on learning, student-centered learning, culturally responsive pedagogy is a little bit newer to everything, but we're seeing some little changes, but not big changes. And
mm-hmm.
that's why I think as a community, we really need to put more into the STEM teaching workforce. There's a lot of things that surprise me, but those are just some of them
Y-
that come to mind
y-
right now.
Dr. Page, as you were talking, and this is kind of like a follow-up to what you were saying, um, they were asking, what advice would you give to kids who are part of a minority population and or up and coming first generation? So as you were saying, you were first generation college student, that question was popping up. And so what advice might you give to a student, a child, a kid who's part of a minority or first gen uh, in higher education?
Well, we have a lot of first generation college students here at U of H. A lot of them are in my class, and I my advice, which somebody else just gave, I think it was Tim, but I'm not sure, is you can do this. You absolutely can do this. You deserve to be here. It's hard, it's tough, but you can definitely do this.
Okay.
And I mean, because it is tough, it's really tough to get a STEM degree. It's really tough
Hmm.
to get a STEM degree plus teacher certification. But
Right.
just empowering them, letting them know they are special and they do deserve to be there. Sometimes saying it is not enough. So the role of mentorship, like everybody else on this panel mentioned, is so important. To have that mentor, to have that person in your corner that just will elevate you when times get tough. And
Sure.
so that's what we do in our program. The faculty here are all really strong mentors, but also we have, as somebody else mentioned, I think Sissy mentioned the importance of scholarships.
Hmm.
When we've had instances where we have students that they're almost there. They're almost there. And, when they get that degree, it's going to change their
Hmm.
life. Um,
Absolutely.
and we are able to, we have funds set aside to help support them. So
Absolutely.
I said a bunch of stuff, but
No, thank you. You said a lot of good stuff. And so, thank you for that. I do want to do one thing really quick. I want to do a quick, fast round. Just it's going to be a quick answer, like really quick, hopefully. And I want everybody to just loop around and answer. It's your turn to talk when nobody else is talking. And so here's the question. Um, what is the coolest or most exciting part of your job? And I'll start with Valerie because I see you first, and then I'll move on to Darius and Tim, and then I'll go down the line. So Valerie, what's the coolest and most exciting part of your job?
So much. The coolest thing for me is being able to see how what we do changes someone's life to be able to see again,
Mhm.
right?
Sure.
Patients come in and they're absolutely not able to see, or they've been in a car accident and was told they'll never be able to have vision. And then after we've done what we needed to do for them, they come back and they're able to see. Being able to be a part of that is such a blessing for me. And that's what I love. That's why I do what I do.
Thank you. Dearest, 20 seconds.
The most fun for me is being able to create innovative products again for people to try. Millions of individuals are able to drink these products every single day,
Yeah.
which is super fascinating. And just having the
Mhm.
opportunity to create something that is shared amongst the world. As a young kid, you would never think that creating a small beverage would be something that is taken to that magnitude. So it's super
Mhm.
cool to see it on the TV, for example, at home.
Yeah. Tim.
For me, it's pretty much seeing our astronauts being able to do research on board for, it could be cancer research, it could be DNA research, that it
Mhm.
can potentially further creating vaccines or new therapies. So
Sure.
seeing that happen live and being part of it,
Mhm.
it's very surreal.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Laura, real quick. Laura, then Sissy, then Lupe.
I think definitely working with the future generation of teachers and working with colleagues who bring a variety of different disciplines. It's fascinating to learn from my colleagues and learn from my students.
Nice.
Yes, I say this all the time. I feel like it's a privilege to get to do something that I love, that I actually get paid to have questions and to design experiments and studies to answer those questions. It's also an honor and a privilege to work, like Laura said, with the next generation, to work with future teachers and current teachers that are just as passionate about science as I am, and to learn from each other and collaborate. I learn probably more from my students than they probably learn from me. Hopefully it's a two-way street, but it is an honor and a privilege to get to do something that I love so deeply.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Lupe, you get the final word.
For me, I really enjoy working as a team with my team and just working in that team environment. I really enjoy that. And at the same time, when people ask me, is tap water safe to drink? I always really enjoy telling them, yes, it is. So that's, we're part of that process. So yeah.
So do I really need to buy the $50 filter every 3 months?
Just for your home, if you want
Just-
better tasting water, yes, but
Okay.
the tap is safe.
The tap is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to drink out the water hose playing football in the street. So I'm pretty certain it's safe. But I appreciate you. I want to thank everybody. I'm going to kick it back over to Erin, and she's going to have she's going to take it from there. Thank you
Thanks,
again.
James.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to everyone. And as we come to a close of the 2025 STEM Summit, I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone who made this event possible. To our incredible speakers, thank you for sharing your knowledge, expertise, and passion for driving equity in STEM. Your insights have sparked important conversations and inspired us all to take action in shaping the future of education and workforce development. To our engaged audience, your dedication into building a stronger STEM field for the next generation is what made this summit a success. As we leave today, let's carry with us the knowledge, connections, and renewed commitment to align education, industry, and workforce needs in ways that open doors for all students, especially those that need equitable opportunities, excuse me. A special thank you to our sponsor, Shell. Please take the time out to complete this survey if you'd like to receive CPE credits for your attendance today. The end of the survey will collect the information required for us to send you a certificate via email. So please go ahead and complete that. Thank you again for being part of today's summit. Together, we will continue innovating and advocating for children.
Thank you all for joining us today. We have concluded our summit, as Erin so kindly said, but we do have a few answers still being typed in the Q&A. So if you did submit a question, feel free to hang out and we'll do our best to answer it. If you have to hop, we will be sharing all the resources shortly in a recap email. Thank you again.